Hello student, myself Kuhu Sarkar. Today I'm going to continue my series of WB Set exam of 2023 English paper where I discussed each and every question with detailed explanation and analysis. So if you did not watch my previous videos, please go and watch it. Okay, so now I'm going to start the question number 10, which is which of the following works was not written by Thomas Carlyle? So here I have to say that this question was wrong because there are two works which was written by John Ruskins. They are The Lamp of Memory and Unto This Last. So this question was wrong. But there are other works like Sartor Resartus and Chartism were written by Thomas Carlyle. So mm, let's go for the explanation. Sartor Resartus, The Life and Opinions of Her Teufelsdrottھ by Thomas Carlyle, originally published in Fraser's magazine in 1833 to 1834 and as a separate volume at Boston, Massachusetts. This work was written under the influence of the German Romantic school and particularly of Richard. It consists of two parts, a discourse on the philosophy of clothes. So, the works was written on the philosophy of clothes. Sartor Resartus means the tailor repatched or the tailor retailer, based on the speculations of an imaginary Professor Teufelsdrottھ and leading to the conclusion that all symbols, forms, and human institutions are formally clothes. So here the writer taking the philosophy that every symbols, forms, and human emotion in institutions are formed properly clothes, and as such temporary, and a biography of Teufelsdrottھ himself, which is in some measure of author's autobiography. So we can say that it is some measure of author's autobiography, particularly in the description of the village of Enthiful and of the German university suggested by Ecclefan and Edinburgh, and still more in the notable chapters on everlasting no and center of indifference and everlasting yeah, which depict a spiritual crisis such as Carlyle himself has experienced during his early Edinburgh days. So it is an autobiographical novel. The prose is highly characteristic, dotted with capital letters, exclamation marks, and phrases in German. Compound words of the author's own invention with apostrophe to the reader. So, here we see that the prose is highly characteristic, dotted with capital letters, exclamation marks, phrases in German, compound words of the author's own invention. Here the authors try his own invention while apostrophes to the reader. So we can say that it is almost a modern work. Though it was written in Victorian period, but we can say that it is the style is more like modern work. Apocalyptic utterances and outbursts of satire and bathos, an early example of what came to be known as Carlyle's. So it is also came to be known as Carlyle's. So our next work was Chartism. In this essay, Chartism, Carlyle attacked utilitarianism. So, in the work Chartism, Carlyle attacks utilitarianism and addresses the condition of England, including various areas he believes are in great need of reform. So, he believes that there are great need of reform. In Chartism, which was published in 1840, he appeared as a bitter opponent of the conventional economic theory. So in Chartism, he appeared as a bitter opponent of the conventional economic theory. Now we see the next work, which was written by John Ruskin, The Lamp of Memory. John Ruskin overturned Victorian society's ideas about art and architecture, arguing that ancient buildings must be conserved for their deep mystical links with past, and creative design is essential. So here we see that John Ruskin arguing that ancient buildings must be conserved for their deep and mystical links with the past, and creative design is essential not for financial gain but communicate eternal human truth. So here he says that creative design is essential for what? Not for only financial gain but to communicate eternal human truths. So, our next work, Unto This Last was also written by John Ruskin, is an essay critical of economics first published between August and December 1860 in the monthly journal Cornell magazine in 4 articles. So here you see there are two work by John Ruskin, so the question was wrong. Next and let's see the next question number 11. So question number 11, which new genre did uh, order Audre Lorde's text Jamie, a new spelling of my name, establish? And the answer is biomythography. So here we see Jamie, written by Audre Lorde. Jamie, a new spelling of my name, is a 1982 biomythography by American poet Audre Lorde. It started a new genre that the author calls biomythography. So, what is biomythography? Which combines history, biography, and myth. In the text, Lord writes that Jamie is a Kariaku name for women who work together as friends and lovers. Nothing that Kariku is the Caribbean island from which her mother immigrated. The name proves fitting. Lord begins Jamie writing that she owes her power and strength to the woman in her life, and much of the book is devoted to detailed portraits of the other women. So here we see that Audre Lorde grows up in Harlem in the 1930s to 1940s. A child, black West Indian parents, Lorde is legally blind from a very young age, isolating her from even further from her surroundings and family, from which she does not receive much warmth of affection. Her two older sisters, Phyllis and Helen, are very close but are rarely mentioned in Jamie, and Lord spends little time with them. Her parents and other adults, especially her mother, disciplined her harshly for insolence. Lord does not speak until age 4, when she declares that she wants to read, and promptly follows through on this desire. She witnessed racism from a young age. The family's landlord hangs himself for having to rent his flat to black people. So here we see the racism issue. When the family takes a trip to Washington, DC, they are not allowed to eat ice cream at lunch counter because of Crow laws. So they are not allowed to eat ice cream. Despite the rampant racism of this era, encountered in her daily life, her mother attempted to shield her from it. When white people spit at them during Lord's childhood, her mother would disparage those low class people for spitting into the wind. So here we see the racism issues in everywhere. After getting her first period at age 15, Lord makes friends with a small number of non black girls at Hunter College High School who labeled themselves the Branded. She is elected literary editor of the school's art magazine and begins writing poetry. After graduation, she leaves home and shares a flat with friends of Jean's, ceasing contact with her parents and two sisters. At the same time, she also goes out with Peter, a white boy, who jilts her on New Year's Eve after finding out she is pregnant. Lord ultimately decides to get an abortion. After some unhappy times at Hunter College, she moves to Stamford, Connecticut to find work in a factory, where the working conditions prove atrocious. Following her father's death, she returns to New York and starts a relationship with B, whose heart she ends up breaking when she decides to move to Mexico and to get away from McCarthyism. There she goes university and works as a secretary in a hospital. In Cuernavaca, she meets a lot of independent women, mostly lesbians. She has relationship with one of them, Eudora, and works in a library. Black in New York, Lord explores the lesbian bar scenes, moves in with lover Muriel. Another woman, Lynn, moves in with them and ends up leaving without warning and steals their savings. Finally, Lord begins a relationship with a mother named Apricot, who decides to leave to tend to her child. The book ends with on homage to Lord Mother. So here we see a biomythography fiction where biography, myth, and history mixed or combined. Our next question, question number 12, where we have to select the year 1859 publication, and our answer is option number C. Now see the explanation. Smiles was not very successful. The first is Smiles self-help book, right? Smiles was not very successful in his career, and as a doctor and journalist, he joined several corporate ventures, but they failed for lack of capital. Disillusioned, he returned away from middle class utopianism and finally found intellectual refuge and national fame in a isolation of self-help. He exalted the virtues of self-help, industry, and perseverance. However, he rejected the application of laissez-faire to critical areas such as public health and education. So here we see that Smiles' self-help book also published in 1859, and it's encourage that how a man can self-help mm, prove himself, right? So our next option, On Liberty by John Stuart Mill, is a philosophical essay by English philosopher John Stuart Mill, published in 1859. It applies Mill's ethical system of utilitarianism in society and state. Mill suggests standards for the relationship between authority and liberty. He emphasized the importance of individuality, which he considered prerequisite to the higher pleasure, the summum bonum utilitarianism. Furthermore, Mill asserts that democratic ideals may result in the tyranny of the majority. Among the standards proposed are Mill's three basic liberties of individuals, his three legitimate objections to government intervention, and two maxims regarding the relationship of the individual to society. So here we see that John Stuart Mill's essay, the philosophical essay on liberty, also published in 1859. On Liberty was a great influence and well received work Some classical liberals and libertarians have criticized it for apparent discontinuity with utilitarianism and vagueness in defining the arena within which individual can contest government infringements of on their personal freedom of action. The ideas presented in on liberty have remained the basic of much political thought. It has remained in print since its initial publication. A copy on liberty is passed to the president of British Liberal Democrats as a symbol of office. So it is a famous philosophical work by John Stuart Mill. Now, our next work, A Tale of Two Cities, which was also published in 1859 by Charles Dickens, set in London and Paris before and during the French Revolution. So it is a historical novel, um, which was also published in 1859. Now, our next question, question number 13, who according to Robert Browning is the lost leader, and our answer is William Wordsworth. Published in 1845 as a part of dramatic romance and lyrics, The Lost Leader criticized those who have deserted noble political causes for personal gain and social acceptance. According to critic, the poem focused explicitly on William Wordsworth, whom Browning admired before the former grew conservative. So we see that Browning was an admirer of William Wordsworth, but after some time, when he received poet laureate, uh, mm, Browning criticized him for his political affair, and he wrote The Lost Leader. So let's read the poem. Just for a handful of silver he left us, just for a ribbon to stick in his coat, found the one gift of which fortune bereft us, lost all the others he lets us devote. They, with the gold to give, doled him out silver. So much was there who so little allowed. How all our copper had gone for his service. Rags were they purple, his heart had been proud. What we that had loved him so, followed him, honored him, lived in his mild and magnificent eye, learned his great language, caught his clear accent, made him our pattern to live and to die. Shakespeare was of us, Milton was for us, Burns, Shelley were with us. They watched from their graves. He alone breaks from the van and the free man. He alone sinks to the rear and slaves. We shall march prospering, not through his presence. Songs might inspirit us, not from his lyre. Deeds will be done, while he boasts his quiescence. Still bidding crouch, whom the rest bade aspire, blot out his name, then record one lost soul more, one task more declined, one more footpath untrod, one more devil's dream and sorrow for angels, one more wrong more to man, one more insult to God. Life's night begin, let him never come back to us. There would be doubt, hesitation and pain, forced praise on our part, the glimmer of twilight, never glad, confined morning again. Best fight on well, for we taught him, strike gallantly. Menace our heart, our ear, we master his own, then let him receive the new knowledge and wait us, pardoned in heaven, the first by the throne. So this is a beautiful poem. I may don't have include this, but I liked the poem very much, so I include it in my PDF. So let's see the next question, question number 14, which is, which writer did not belong to the movement poets? And the answer is Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas. Mm, Dylan Thomas. Okay. Did I skip any? Okay, sorry. I skipped question 14. Mm, question number 14. In Novum Organum, Bacon classified some intellectual fallacies as ideals of the mind. Which of the following is not one of them? And our answer is idols of the temple. Okay, so our answer is idols of the temple. Now see the four idols of Francis Bacon. In the Novum Organum, the new instrument for the acquisition of knowledge, Francis Bacon classified intellectual fallacies of his time under um, four readings, which he called idols. He distinguished them as idols of the tribe, idols of the cave, idols of the marketplace, and idols of the theater. An idol is an image, in this case held in the mind, which received veneration but is without substance itself. Bacon did not regard idols as symbols but rather as fiction. Bacon used the theater, which its curtain and properties, as a symbol of the world stage. Bacon and the four idols. Idols of the tribe. Either the idols of the tribe is human tendency to fall in love with a dogma. Here we see that human, in his from his very first of his childhood, gained many prejudice, and where he used the prejudice, he get the prejudice from the society, from his family background, and he used it in his life, and this prejudice became a dogma. Idols of the cave, is excessive importance given to the personal experience, the idol of personal bias. So every individual also have some personal bias, where they what they do, they have some personal bias, and they interpret the society or everything with their personal bias, personal individuality. Then idols of the marketplace, the fallacy of the catchword and or unexamined vocabulary. Here we can say that when our culture or any culture mixed with another culture, they can't receive the other culture properly, so they take some ambiguous word, they misinterpret other cultures words, and this is called the idols of marketplace, as per Bacon. And then the last is idols of the theater, the fallacy of theories to spin seductive theories and plausive but fictitious system. Here he says that there are some philosophy which was taken as taken in theater, which was taken in theater. They are like spin seductive theories, some theories like some patriarchy, where women are looked as inferior being there. So there are, in our society there are many philosophies like that, and these are called the idols of theater. Let's see the next question, question number 15. Uh, Question number 15, there are some mistake like okay, so sorry. Question number 15, which writer did not belong to the movement poets? And the answer is Dylan Thomas. In question number 14, maybe I remarked wrong the idol of marketplace. So please correct this answer. The answer will be idols of the temple. Okay. So please correct this. So question number 15, which writer did not belong to the movement poet? And the answer is Dylan Thomas. So let's see something about Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas, uh, born in Swansea, the son of English master at Swansea Grammar School, where he himself was educated, he knew no Welsh. He began write poetry while still at school. Something about Dylan Thomas. He is different from others because when other poets like Ted Hughes, Auden, Spender, they are writing in modern way, they are writing in expressive way. Dylan Thomas became different from them, and uh, he uh, he went back to the romanticism. He then tried to write like romantic poet. So therefore his poetry, his poems are much more sentimental and much more different from other writers. uh, this is the feature of Dylan Thomas. So let's see about Dylan Thomas. His first volume of verse, 18 poems, appeared in the same year. He then embarked on grassroots career of journalism, broadcasting, filmmaking, spending much time in the flourishing afternoon drinking clubs of the era, and rapidly acquiring a reputation for exuberance and flamboyance as both poet and personality. Then, um, despite some allegation of deliberate obscurity, Thomas' romantic, affirmative, rhetorical style gradually won a large following. So, in his times, he worked totally differently, and therefore he gained much more attention. Right, and it was both new and influential, much imitated by contemporaries of the New Apocalypse movement. Uh, and the publication of Death and Entrance, 1946, which contains some of his best known work, including Fernhill, A Refusal to Mourn the Death by Fire of a Child in London. So these are his famous work or best known work, established him with a wide public, and his collected poems, 1934 to 1952, sold extremely well. His work sets minutely and continually labored over reveal him as an impatient and obsessional craftsman, and great part of his matured work consists of the reworking of the early poetic outburst of his youth, controlled by the strict discipline. Then his other works like The Map of Love is a collection of prose and verse. Portrait of the artist as a young dog is a famous work, is a collection of largely autobiographical short stories. Adventures in the Skin Trade is a collection of short stories, unfinished title. And his other works like Under Milkwood and Echoes Return Slow, Counterpoint, Mass for Hard Times, complete poems in 1945 to 1990, was published in 1993 to coincide with the 18th birthday. So we see that Thomas Carlyle was totally different from his contemporaries, and he write sentimental poems and sentimental poetry. So let's see our next question. Question number 16. Identify the novel of Margaret Atwood that based on the post-apocalyptic life. So post-apocalyptic life, and the answer is uh, Oryx and Crake. So now see the option, The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood's novel, The Blind Assassin, um, for the past 25 years, Margaret Atwood has written work of striking originality and imagination. In Blind Assassin, he stretches the limit of her accomplishment as never before, creating a novel that is entertaining and profoundly serious. The Blind Assassin proves once again that Atwood is one of the most talented, daring, and exciting writer of our time. Like Handmaid's Tale, it is destined to become a classic. Margaret Atwood takes art of storytelling to a new height in dazzling novel and unfolds the layer of astonishing layer and concludes in a brilliant, wonderful, satisfying twist. So here we see that in Blind Assassin there are novel under a novel. So there is novel between a novel, and it is a frame story, and the story following or the period of 1930s to 1940s, and it's a richly layered and unique rewarding experience. So here we see that it's open with the simple resonant words. 10 days after the war ended, my sister dropped a car off the bridge. They are spoken by Iris, and whose star's account of her sister Laura's death in 1945 is followed by an inquest reporting proclaiming the death accidental. So here we see that there are two sisters, Iris and Laura, and Iris was the writer of a novel whose name is The Blind Assassin, and it is not sure that who write the novel, and the sister Laura who attempts suicide, and the story goes on, but just as the reader expects to settle into Laura's story, Arthur introduced a novel within a novel. So here you see that a novel within a novel. This is a novel, and Iris herself writing a novel, and the novel's name entitled The Blind Assassin. It is a science fiction story told by two unnamed lovers. So the novel within a novel which was written by Iris is a science fiction or by two unnamed lovers who meet in dingy backstreet room. When we return to Iris, it is through 1947 newspaper article announcing the discovery of the sailboat carrying the dead body of her husband and distinguished industrialist. So here we see that the story begins, or in the story we see that Iris' husband also committing suicide, and we have to look the story deeply if we try to understand the plot, because it is a critical plot, or we can say the complex plot. So now see our next option, Oryx and Crack, which is the right option, the apocalyptic fiction. Oryx and Crack is a 2003 novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood. She was described novel as speculative fiction and adventure romance rather than pure science fiction, because it is a not deal with things we can't yet do or begin to do. yet goes beyond the amount of realism she associates with the novel form. It focuses on a lone character called Snowman who finds himself in a bleak situation with only creature called Crackers to keep him company. So we see that what is apocalyptic novel? Apocalyptic novel is something where some scientific things were happening, some plague, some something futuristic, something unrealistic were happened. And in this novel we also see that some plague was happened, and cracks was responsible for the plague. Oryx and Crack is at once an unforgettable love story and a compelling vision of the future. Snowman, or known as Jimmy, before mankind was overwhelmed by a plague. So here you see that there is a plague in the novel, is struggling to survive in a world where he may be the last human, mourning the loss of his friend and Crack and the beautiful and elusive Oryx, whom they both loved. So here you see the Crack and Jim both loved the lady Oryx. In search of answers, Snowman embarks on a journey within the help of the green-eyed children of Crack through the last wilderness that was so recently a great city until powerful corporations took mankind and uncontrolled genetic engineering right. Margaret Atwood projects us into a near future that both in that is both all too familiar and beyond our imagining. So here we see that Oryx and Crack is a apocalyptic novel. So here there is many scientific things and something like plague, something like destruction. In Oryx and Crack, apocalypse strikes when human reach near extinction because of the lethal virus in the bliss plus pills created by crack. So as I told before that crack was responsible for the plague. As Oryx says, when the plague starts spreading, it was in those pills I was giving away, the ones I was selling. It's all the same cities I went there. So now we see that what is apocalyptic. Apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic fiction is a subgenre of speculative fiction in which the Earth or another planet civilization is collapsing or has collapsed. So here we see that apocalypse or post-apocalyptic fiction is a subgenre of speculative fiction in which Earth civilization is collapsing. Right, the apocalypse event may be climatic, such as runaway climate change, astronomical, such as impact event, destructive, such as nuclear holocaust and resource depletion, medical, such as a pandemic, whether natural and human caused, and time such as the last judgment, second coming, or Ragnarok. Right. The story may involve attempts to prevent the apocalypse event, deals with the impact and consequence of the event itself. It may be post-apocalyptic. See, set after the event. So, what is post-apocalyptic? The event which is set after the destruction. Okay, the time may be directly after catastrophe. So there are various examples like Mary Shelley's The Last Man, then others like Epic of Gilgamesh, and many others. Right. So let's see our next option. Next option is Cat's Eye. Cat's Eye is a 1988 novel by Canadian writer Margaret Atwood about fictional painter Ellen Risley, who vividly reflects on her childhood and teenage years. Her strongest memories are of Cordelia, who was the leader of trio of girls who were both very cruel and very kind to her in ways that teens Ellen's perception of the relationship and her worth, not to mention her art into the middle years. The novel unfolds in mid 20th century Canada from World War II to late 1980s, including a look at many of the cultural elements of that time period, including feminism, various modern art movements. The book was finalist for the 1998 Governor General's Award and for the Booker Prize. So here we see that the novel is about fictional painter Ellen Risley and her childhood and teenage years. And our last option, the option is surfacing. So, Surfacing, written by Arthur, published by Macmillan and Stewart in 1972. It was her second novel. Surfacing had been described by the commentators as a companion novel to Arthur's collection of poems, Power Politics, which was written the previous year and deals with the complementary issues. The book tells story of a woman who returns to her hometown in Canada to find her missing father. So it is a very much interesting story where a girl finding her father, and he find her father is almost like became mad or insane, and he became totally insane, and he is now doing stitching shoes and doing something nonsense type of work. And here we see that the protagonist accompanied by her lover Joe and married couple Anna and David. The unnamed protagonist meets her past in her childhood house, recalling events and feelings while trying to find clues to father's mysterious disappearance. Little by little, the past overtakes her and drives her into realm of wilderness and madness. And here we see that. Sorry, I what I told that her father became insane. No, the protagonist herself became insane. She is searching for her father, and then she accompanied with her lover Joe and a married couple, and after that she herself became insane. But after some times she with the help of her lover she became normal, and then she find her identity, and then she find the purpose of her life. So it's a beautiful novel, and I confused it with another novel by Dickens. So sorry for that. I confused it with the Tales of Two Cities, I think. So sorry for that, because these two novels are much more alike. And this is our last question. So if you like my explanation, like my uh, videos, please like and please do comment and give your feedback. Thank you very much.